All right, today we're pulling back the curtain on the high stakes, high profit world of academic publishing. We're going to dive deep into a research paper that breaks down how this whole system really works, who's winning, and most importantly, how the rules of the game might be about to change. So let's just start with a number 37%. What's that? Well, get this. Back in 2019, that was the profit margin for Elsevier, one of the biggest academic publishers on the planet. That's a huge number. But it's kind of hard to grasp what it really means without some context. So, to really put that into perspective, just look at this. That 37% absolutely blows some of the biggest names in tech out of the water. In that same year, Google and Apple, we're talking two of the most profitable companies in the world, they were both sitting around 21%. So yeah, the takeaway here is that big-time academic publishing is somehow even more profitable than big tech. And that just begs the question, right? How on earth is that possible? I mean, how can an industry that depends on academics to write articles, review them, and edit them, usually for free, be making that much money? To figure that out, we have to understand the game itself. Now, the paper we're looking at today argues that this isn't just one simple problem. Oh no, it's a systemic issue, and it's happening on a bunch of different levels that are all connected. So to get it, you've got to look at the whole system, the institutions in the middle, and the individual scholars all at the same time. So we're going to break it down using the paper's 3 levels. First, we'll look at the macro level. That's the overall system. Then we'll zoom into the meso level, which is all about the universities. And finally, we'll get down to the micro level and focus on the individual academics who are actually playing the game. Okay, let's start at the very top, the macro level. The paper points out that academic publishing is what you'd call an oligopoly. That just means a tiny handful of huge, for-profit publishers basically control the entire field. And Elsevier is the biggest player of them all, publishing something like a quarter of all academic papers. And their business model? Well, it's kind of genius, in a way. Just think about it. They get the research articles, their main product, for free from academics. Then they get other academics to do the quality control, the peer review, also for free. And then they turn around and sell the finished product back to the very same universities that paid for the research in the first place through these super expensive subscriptions. And as if that's not enough, they also track all this activity and sell the data back to those institutions as analytics. So let's move down to that middle layer, the meso level. This is where the universities live. And they are all locked in this constant, fierce battle for rankings, for funding, for prestige. This pressure cooker environment creates that famous publish or perish culture, forcing academics to publish in the most prestigious journals, which, surprise, surprise, are the ones controlled by that oligopoly. And the paper uses some seriously strong language to describe this. It compares the whole system to a pyramid scheme. Wow. It argues that early career researchers put in all this free work hoping that one day they'll make it to the top and get the rewards. It's a pretty harsh way to put it, but it really highlights how the system keeps running on the hopes and dreams of its participants. And that brings us all the way down to the micro level, the individual scholar. So why? Why do they do it? You've got these brilliant critical thinkers. Why do they keep playing a game that seems so clearly stacked against them? Well, the paper suggests it's basically a psychological trap. And the key idea here is a concept from the sociologist Pierre Bourdieu called illusio. It's the state you get into when you're so deep inside a game, so invested in winning, that you just accept the rules. You accept the stakes as totally normal and legitimate. You're so focused on playing that you kind of forget to ask if the game itself even makes sense. And that's where many academics find themselves. But here's the thing. Not every scholar plays this game the same way. The paper actually breaks them down into 4 different types based on how passionate they are about the research itself and how productive they are within the system. Okay, let's unpack this table. In the top left, with high passion and high productivity, you've got the winners. These are the folks who've mastered the game. Right below them are the orthodox. They're also really productive, but maybe with a little less passion. They're just really, really good at following the rules. Then over on the right, you have the less productive players. The heterodox are super passionate, but they resist the system. And finally, the outsiders are low on both, maybe focusing more on things like teaching instead of the publishing race. So if that's the game we're in right now, what are the alternatives? Is there a way out? Well, the paper doesn't just point out the problems, it actually offers up 3 really provocative scenarios for how the rules could change. Okay, scenario 1 is pretty wild.
It basically says, what if we just stopped pretending and leaned all the way into the market logic? What if we treated academic work like any other commercial transaction?
And you can see the difference right here. Right now, academics give their labor away for free. But in this scenario, they'd start sending invoices. Imagine that. They demand to be paid market rates for their writing, their peer reviews, their editing. That would totally pull back the curtain and force everyone to see the true cost of the labor that the whole system is built on. Now, the second scenario completely flips the script. Instead of going full-on commercial, this one is all about reclaiming science as a public good for everyone. And this is the whole idea behind the open science movement, using technology to tear down paywalls and get people collaborating again. So what would that world even look like? Well, imagine research papers that are free for anybody to read, peer review that's done out in the open, transparently, research platforms that are actually built for teamwork, not for competition. And maybe most importantly, it would mean we'd have to move past simple scores like the impact factor and find better ways to measure the value of research. The third and final scenario is by far the most radical. It suggests that maybe we need to change more than just how we publish. Maybe we need to change what we research and why we're doing it in the first place. And this right here is the core of it. Instead of chasing citations or trying to get into fancy journals, researchers would focus on tackling the biggest problems facing the world. Success wouldn't be about your publication record. It would be about the real-world impact you're having. It's a total shift from playing academic games to making a real difference. Okay, so we've got a broken system and three totally different visions for the future. One that's more commercial, one that's open and collaborative, and one that's focused on real-world relevance. So where does that leave us? Well, the paper concludes that the future isn't set in stone. It's probably not going to be just one of these pure scenarios. More likely, it's going to be some kind of messy, negotiated hybrid of all of them. And what that future looks like will come down to the choices made by every single person in the system, the publishers, the universities, and, yeah, the individual scholars. And that leaves us with one last powerful question. Because understanding how this game works isn't just an academic exercise. It's about realizing that we have the power to change the rules. The real challenge isn't just to learn how to play the game. It's to help build a better game. So the question is, what's your next move?